Alright guys, so today I'm going to be giving you a rough guide on my Alpha Bridge DPS PvP build. I'm also going to try and make the video double as a sort of guide to building Alpha Bridge, but every time I've tried to record it, there's so much information about this specific composition and the gear set in general that it ends up being over 30 minutes. So I'm going to try and cut down on that as much as possible. Now, if I do that, I'm going to leave things out. So if you have any questions, please leave them in the comments below, and either I or someone else will hopefully be able to answer you in a timely fashion. So to start off with, I am running a hybrid composition of 4-piece Alpha Bridge, 2 pieces of high-end gear, the Leray Barrett bulletproof chest, and the Savage gloves, and then 2 assault rifles, which I believe to be the strongest category of weapon in the game right now. And then also I'll talk about my skills and my talents later on. So I have 1 piece of electronics gear. Now that's a quality of life thing to activate competent, not in the 3rd slot. That's just a diversity play. That makes it so that I can then get pretty much any other assault rifle, and it's a lot easier for me to incorporate assault rifles into this build because I don't need competent to be in the 3rd slot only. It makes it much easier for me to incorporate something like a burst fire gun if I find it, and it makes it easier to switch things out faster. Now, it's very easy to activate competent. 1 piece of electronics gear will do, and not only that, the electronics gives you a stronger heal, which means more survivability. Means, shorter cooldowns. You can pop your heal and your pulse more often, which then triggers Leray Barrett's bonuses much faster and more reliably. So again, it doesn't hurt. I would encourage everyone to run at least 1 electronics piece in pretty much all builds now. So talking about all the different attributes on this backpack, it is a electronics backpack. Armor in the major attribute slot. This is absolutely, unwavering. You're not going to change that. Armor is going to be in the major attribute slot on every single piece of gear that you can possibly run it on. Because it's Alpha Bridge, you're going to be using your weapon and weapon DPS to trade with enemy players, which means you will be taking damage. You're not in the back sniping, you're not in the back shooting skills or anything like that. You're going to be trading with players, so you're going to have armor on everything. That's always going to be the case. In the minor attribute slot, there's one thing I would do to improve this. Switch that out for increased ammo capacity. Since both your guns are of the same category, they're going to use the same ammo type, which means you're going to run out more frequently. So at least 1 piece of gear needs to have ammo capacity. Backpacks are capable of rolling that, so that's something I would want there instead of disrupt resistance. Moving on to your holster, you want as high a possible roll in all categories, that goes without saying, and then armor as a major attribute slot. There's nothing else to cover there. Moving on to your knee pads, you're going to have armor as a major attribute. I have well-rolled stamina knee pads. I have 2 pieces of stamina, 2 pieces of firearms, and 1 piece of electronics. This is one of the stamina pieces. And then for the minor attributes, the only thing I would change is blind and death resistance for enemy armor damage. Enemy armor damage now functions in PvP and directly relates to more damage to enemy agents. So rolling that in your knee pads and on your mask, in a second I'll talk about that, is going to be critical. Moving on to your mask, you have health on kill and disorient resistance with firearms rolled Alpha Bridge mask here. Now the major attribute I would prefer to be critical hit chance, but health on kill is not bad. Minor attribute I would prefer to be enemy armor damage unequivocally. That's going to be very powerful, and I would prefer to stack that everywhere in tandem with the fact that I'm using an assault rifle. Moving on to my 2 pieces of high end, I'm using the Barrett's bulletproof vest. This is a very good chest piece. Now really quickly, for anyone that does not already know, this is an increased probability of dropping from Lexington Event Center's final boss, Leray Barrett. I would advise everyone, it is a grind, but to go there right now and pick one of these up if you can. It will take many, many runs, but once you get one, it's going to become the staple in pretty much all the builds that you're going to be running, and definitely all the PvP builds that you run currently in 1.5. It's very powerful. It's not that hard to complete Lexington. It can be done very quickly, and it's not that difficult to farm for. But that being said, there's an element of RNG, so stick with it, have some patience, and pick one of these chest pieces up. Now the talent, Barrett's Bulletproof, no skills on cooldown increases skill power by 10%, 1 skill on cooldown increases damage by 5%, and 2 skills on cooldown increases armor by 10%. It's important to note that all of these are mutually exclusive. You cannot have more than 1 of these bonuses active at all times, but that being said, 1 of these bonuses will be active at all times, one or the other. Now, for all my different attributes, I have health and armor. I would prefer something like EDR, but armor is the essential one here. This is a decently rolled piece of firearms. It's a firearms chest piece. And then I have health and armor. That's to increase toughness. Now, you are going to run into something like a one-shot sticky. So it's important to have health or EDR or something similar, because stickies do exist now, and they're very, very annoying. We actually put a video out about that about a day ago, and you can check that out if you'd like to. But something to increase toughness, because you need some element of survivability when in the dark zone. It's very, very risky. For the minor attributes, I wouldn't change this at all. Ammo capacity, that's great for Alpha Bridge. So now to talk about my gloves really fast. We have Savage gloves with a very high stamina roll. That's perfect. And then for major attributes, assault rifle damage, critical hit chance, and health on kill. I would prefer health on kill to be critical hit damage, but it's all good. These are pretty close to a god roll. They're very, very good for my purposes. Now, all these things pair together to give me a high damage gun and very variable stats here. So I'm going to demonstrate a couple things before I talk about my weapons. Just from my gear, if I were to pop just my booster shot, which I am running over overdose, I will go up to 403,000 on the DPS meter and 405,000 toughness. Now, if I were to pop something like Pulse and have both my skills on cooldown, I would then have increased toughness further to 457. Now, this is not something I'm going to advertise as the base level of toughness in the build or the base level of primary DPS in the build, because it's not, but you can realistically and effectively achieve those numbers quite easily. And as you can see, my stats are always changing based on how many skills I have on cooldown, whether it's one or both or none. And while that's changing, that means that I can trade with enemy players in a better way. I can time things, and there's a lot of strategy that goes into using this build. So sit in the firing range, figure out exactly what you need to pop to achieve what numbers, get familiar with the build and the chess piece and how it functions before going to the Dark Zone. Now to talk about my weapons. I have a FAMAS and a military P416. Now the FAMAS is critical for the build because the third talent that comes baked right in is uncomplicated. Damage is increased by 15%, accuracy and stability mods reduce this bonus. And that's going to be your secondary. You're not going to be using the FAMAS as your primary gun. The second gun that you're going to be using, this is the one you're going to fight players with, this should be in your primary slot, is a military P416, or it can be a different assault rifle type. Something like an M4 variant or a LVOAC is going to be better because the RPM is higher and it's going to have more burst damage potential, but the military P416 is very easy to control and has decent RPM with decent mag size. That being said, it's really user's preference. Whatever assault rifle you really want to use, you should use. However, keep in mind that because of uncomplicated, you're going to mod it in a certain way. So the talents that are going to be on both guns is Competent, Unforgiving, and Destructive. Like I said before, Competent is able to be activated because I have one electronics piece. And then you're going to have Responsive, Brutal, and Uncomplicated. Uncomplicated, if you keep even just the majority of that 15%, is the strongest talent for weapon damage in the game right now in terms of unconditional bonuses that are active at all times. Paired with Responsive and paired with something like Unforgiving and Competent are going to mean that you have severely, drastically increased damage on cue, on command, in PvP encounters. So I would consider this to be the best spread of 6 talents. However, you can switch out Destructive, even though it does translate to PvP now directly. It means more damage to enemy agents. You can switch out Destructive for something like Vicious or Fierce, especially if it's in the third slot. So that being said, this is an ideal spread of talents. It's going to be very effective. Now, the P416 is very easy to control, and that's why I've modded it in such a way as this. 105% magazine size, critical hit chance, and rate of fire. That combination on a magazine is optimal for DPS. For the optic, you want critical hit chance, something else, it doesn't have to be stability, and critical hit damage. Ideally, you would not have stability anywhere, but that's what you want for the optic. For your muzzle, you want critical hit damage, critical hit chance, headshot damage. That's ideal for increasing DPS. And for the underbarrel, you have reload speed, something else, and optimal range. It doesn't have to be accuracy. The gun is quite easy to control. As you can see, I can keep it on target. It's really not hard at all. And then moving over to something like the FAMAS, as you can see, it's harder for me to control. So that's why I've chosen to go with that assault rifle type and a lower RPM, but more stability on the gun baked right in, so I can keep all of Uncomplicated active. Now, a very basic tip for Alpha Bridge, if you are struggling to find the right weapon types, or if you're struggling to activate the talents, you can switch your world tier down to world tier 4, 3, or 2, and find a gun that has different talents. If you're going for something like skill build talents on a DPS build, that is achievable with Alpha Bridge. Just switch your world tier, look at the vendors, go around, farm some bosses, and you will find weapons that have lower costs for main stats, such as stamina, firearms, or electronics, and you'll be able to activate different talents and have diversity in your Alpha Bridge build. You don't just have to use 256 pieces or firearms or assault rifles in general. You can use any gear score piece and still have the talents active. That's one way that I think that Alpha Bridge has really, really awesome diversity. Not just the fact that you can build different weapon types around it, but you can actually use different gear score weapons for different reasons to activate different things. So it's very cool. I could harp on that all day, but I'm going to try and get to the point here. Moving on to my abilities, I am running Pulse with Conceal. You always run Conceal in every PvP encounter ever. I'm not going to harp on this or go into why, but you will always be using Conceal in the Dark Zone, period. Always, period, ever. And then you're going to have Booster Shot. I have opted over Overdose to run Booster Shot because of the increased damage specifically, and the damage resistance is very helpful as well. So I do prefer to have Booster Shot. Also, if you look at the cooldown is 43 seconds on Overdose and 39 seconds on Booster Shot, which means I can pop it more frequently and actually allows me to use, different strategies with the Barrett chest piece, and also the damage resistance helps keep me alive. So I am opting to run Booster Shot even though I don't have Vigorous on, so I can't receive an overheal. But what that allows me to do is trigger Competent, use something like Responsive, then get the bonus from Booster Shot, also get the bonus from Luray Barrett Bulletproof Chest Piece, and that's how I can achieve over 400,000 DPS on queue before I trade with players. Very versatile build, very, very powerful. Moving on to my talents, I'm going to try and wrap this up really quickly here. Triage if you're in a group always. Critical Save always, always, period. That's very, very powerful in any build now and helps keep you alive. Combat Medic if you're in a group always. And then on the move always, because you can kill downed enemy agents very easily. The two that you want to switch out if you are not in a group and you're running solo, Triage and Combat Medic can be switched for something like One is None and or Strike Back, because when you achieve low health you'll get decreased cooldown. So those are some different things that you can switch out in and out to make the build better when you're running solo versus in a group. All right, moving on, I am going to kick it to some gameplay here. Actually, first I'm going to really quickly cover my mods. In every single slot in this build, you're going to run a firearms mod with armor. You don't always have to make that the case though. You can run stamina with armor if you want to increase toughness. You can run electronics with armor if you want to increase skill power. But you want to activate all your gun talents, and you want armor on all of your different mods, period. It's the best thing that you can roll, and until they make some drastic changes to the game and how it functions, you're still going to roll armor no matter what they do. So I'll be making sure to update everyone if that ever changes. Now, for all of your performance mod slots, you're going to see here that I have pulse critical hit chance and pulse critical hit damage. You're going to want as much performance mods that either augment first aid self heal or pulse critical hit chance or damage in some way. One of the two primary skills that you're going to be running. Now, the reason you're running those two skills is because you can instantly pop them on Q whenever they're off cooldown. Something like the support station has to actually be destroyed before it goes on cooldown. Something like the assault shield is actually up and it does not go on cooldown until you automatically destroy it by doing it yourself, by holding the trigger. So you want skills that you can pop on command to then get the bonuses. So that's why you're going to be running those, and that's going to be all your performance mod slots to augment the two skills that you're choosing to run, ideally pulse and heal. Now I'm finally going to kick it over some gameplay and talk about the tactics and why the build functions the way it does. Okay, so here we are in the Dark Zone. I'm going to be doing some PvP and showing how much damage it can do, how quickly, and the versatility when you're popping skills to achieve the different bonuses from the chest piece. So when agents are coming up on me, I can deal a lot of damage. If I actually land more headshots, you're going to see that I deal massively increased damage. And I say this in every single video, but someone who has better aim than I do is going to be able to achieve much better results. The build directly hinges on how accurate you are to land more bullets to then deal more damage to enemy players. But someone like myself as well, who has bad aim and not very much accuracy, can also survive a long time due to the different bonuses. While hip firing, it's devastating as well. And the 10% increased armor when you have both skills on cooldown like what I just had, it's going to make me much more tanky. When I pop Booster Shot, I'm going to get that bonus mitigation, again, much more tanky. And I am able to face trade with enemy agents that pretty much will never be able to outdamage me. If I pop Booster Shot directly before an engagement, I am almost at zero risk of going down without something very, very drastic happening, such as multiple sticky bombs or, something like multiple grenades. Or I get focus fired by multiple agents who have attack link up. Now, Booster Shot's very potent in combination with the Luray Barrett chest piece. I have burst damage, I have survivability. It's really great. I do prefer this. This is my go-to strongest PvP build. When asked the question, when people say, if you had to pick one, what is the best PvP build? I will start to say this. Now, if that's only if I have to choose. The patch is very young. I'm not comfortable saying definitively that it is the best, but if I had to choose from my own knowledge pool, I would say that this one is the best. It allows me to trade, it allows me to survive, and if you do opt to run something other than Booster Shot and switch over to Overdose, it's going to be very, very easy to stay alive with that overheal. However, the timing, with Unforgiving, there's a lot of versatility with running Booster Shot, and it's very fun to use. So I don't really have much else to say about the build. It functions quite well. I can achieve well over 24,000 to an agent's head if I snapshot correctly, and if I'm augmented by a team who have other bonuses. That's without tack link, but typically you're not going to be dealing over 20,000. You're going to be dealing between 15 and 20,000 to an enemy agent's head with high RPM, and then body shots as well are quite effective. And from range, you're going to be able to drop them because you have optimal range on your gun modifications. You're going to be able to drop players from very far away, which means something that relies on getting close, such as a shotgun build, which is really phasing out of the meta right now, is going to have a lot of trouble getting to you. A lot of encounters now are fading towards positional advantages instead of just blindly running in and face trading. Now, I still face trade frequently, but it's not something that's always going to be happening. Grenades are very strong. You need to make sure, regardless of the build that you're running, that you're staying away from grenades and you're rolling out of the radius, because they will drop you. Not many people are running EDR, and that's why we had that sticky bomb video that we just put out. But this build is pretty effective at countering sticky bombs because as you see an enemy player wind up with a sticky, just pop booster shot. Not only will you gain increased mitigation and go back to full health if you were at all damaged, that will keep you alive, but you then free yourself up to take some damage and pop a medkit as well, and then trade with them. You have drastically increased damage. So when you pop your booster shot, you're not only ensuring that you will survive, but you're ensuring that you can then melt that probably squishy player before they can do anything after the sticky bomb, because they'll be relying on that sticky bomb to kill you. This is not a direct counter to just the sticky bomb builds, but it's something that can do wonders when you're going up against one to keep you alive and then kill them quickly. So that's going to be it, guys. If you want to support the channel, please check out the links below. We have a lot of good stuff going on at Upper Echelon, and stay tuned for the weekly State of the Echelon video that's coming out in just a few hours here. Thank you so much again for watching. I hope this video had a lot of information on how to build Alpha Bridge. And as always, guys, thanks for watching and have a nice night.